Russian Federation President Vladimir Putin is coming to India after 5 years. The last time he was in New Delhi, the world was still in the COVID grasp. In the past 5 years, much has changed. His friend Narendra Modi is 1 year old in his third term. Russia is cornered and the US wants a peace brokered at the earliest in Ukraine after nearly 6 years of war. Moscow, in its show of defiance, relies heavily on its South Asian friend India. So when the Prime Minister of India extended an invitation to the Russian President in Kazan on the margins of the 16th BRICS Summit in October 2024, the Kremlin took 5 months to confirm that the Russian President will make his 4th trip in 11 years to New Delhi to attend 23rd Annual Indo-Russia Summit. India prepares to say namaste to Putin and iron out deals that will be mutually beneficial to grow and cement decades of friendship between the two countries.
Hello and welcome to the special edition of India Today Global, live from Moscow, where we will be talking about the big Putin visit to India. He's on a 2-day visit starting the 4th of December, and the focus certainly is going to remain defense, trade, energy. Despite sanctions from the United States of America, this relationship is a significant one and is unlikely to diminish. We'll unpack all that and more for you, but first, here's a report.
India awaits with bated breath to welcome Russian President Vladimir Putin for a state visit on the 4th of December. As India and Russia celebrate the 25th year of strategic partnership, President Putin will attend the 23rd bilateral summit. This will be Putin's first visit to India since Russia's war began with Ukraine. He last visited India on the 6th of December 2021. The visit comes amid US pressure on India to stop buying Russian oil and an imposition of additional tariffs. A day before his visit, President Putin, while speaking at an event in Moscow, stressed the importance of pursuing a sovereign economic policy. He also mentioned the high turbulence caused due to the monopoly of certain countries.
We will continue to pursue a sovereign economic policy and act externally based on our own national interests, the needs of domestic businesses and our citizens. We will fulfill our obligations to foreign partners and expand cooperation with those countries that are interested in it. As I have already said, the vast majority of countries act rationally and pragmatically. Over the past 3 years, we have significantly increased our trade volume with them. First and foremost, I mean our key partners, China and India, with whom we share many years of friendship and strategic cooperation.
Ahead of the high-profile visit, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov told reporters that India and Russia have shared historical ties with mutual understanding of partnership. He also described Indians as great friends of Russians.
Russia and Indian relationship is not just a standard set of diplomatic protocols and trade agreements. It's more of that. It's much more important. Our bilateral relationship rests on a deep historic background of mutual understanding, of partnership, and a mutual vision of global affairs and system of global affairs based on international law, on rule of law, and ability of taking into account each other's interests.
Speaking about the India-Russia collaboration, Peskov attributed BrahMos as an example of synergy between both nations. The major highlights of the visit will include cooperation in technology, energy, defense, pharma, transport routes, humanity, and science, as well as cultural collaborations.
Well, tariffs between India and the United States is rather a question of bilateral relations between India and the United States. What concerns us is the way we're going to continue and enlarge the volume of our bilateral business with India, not letting anyone interfere in that. And this will be definitely discussed.
And now, just one moment, Raj Chengappa, please.
When Group Editorial Director Publishing of India Today Group, Raj Chengappa, asked the Russian spokesperson on how Russia reacts to India's consistent push for diplomacy and dialogue to end the war in Ukraine, he praised India for its persistent stand and also hailed India for being a good listener.
Raj Chengappa of India Today. On the Ukraine war, India has consistently avoided condemning Russia while also reiterating the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity and calling for diplomacy and saying this is not an era of war. Is Moscow comfortable with this position, or does it privately expect more explicit political support from Delhi?
What we like is that Prime Minister Modi and our Indian counterparts, they want to listen to our position from the first hand. They want to understand their position, and it gives us a possibility to explain ourselves. And this ensures the mutual understanding. This is of very great importance. Well, for example, we do not speak with Europeans. We don't have a dialogue, even a word. So how can you learn your counterpart's position on a so, well, terribly complicated problem when you don't speak to each other?
Prime Minister Modi will host a private dinner for the Russian president. Putin will be formally received by President Draupadi Murmu and Prime Minister Modi at the Rashtrapati Bhavan forecourt and be given a tri-service guard of honor. He will also pay floral tributes to Mahatma Gandhi at Rajghat.
Defense is going to be top of the agenda, where both the leaders are going to discuss the advanced S-500 systems, Su-57 jets, R-37 missile systems. But the conversation is going to be beyond defense. It's going to be about trade and energy as well. The world will be watching, including DC and Beijing.
इस वर्ष दिसंबर में हमारी 23वीं समिट के लिए 140 करोड़ भारतीय उत्सुकतापूर्वक आपका इंतजार कर रहे हैं.
All eyes are on Russian President Vladimir Putin, India's all-weather friend, who is just hours away from his two-day visit to India on December 4th and 5th. This meet comes 3 months after Modi and Putin held bilateral on the sidelines of SCO in China's Tianjin.
इस वर्ष दिसंबर में हमारी 23वीं समिट के लिए 140 करोड़ भारतीय उत्सुकतापूर्वक आपका इंतजार कर रहे हैं.
У нас такие отношения, что я считал, что вы и так все понимаете.
हमारे इतने रिश्ते हैं कि मुझे ऐसा लगा कि आपको कोई अनुवाद नहीं चाहिए.
Lingering US trade tensions and Russia's war with Ukraine have delayed deals like the Indo-US Pact. But Putin's visit can be a game changer. Over 2 days, the leaders will discuss a wide-ranging agenda: defense, nuclear energy, oil, technology and trade. Defense remains a major pillar. High-end systems like the S-500 air defense platform are expected on the table, reinforcing Russia's role as India's primary partner in missile defense architecture. Even as India diversifies its defense suppliers, Russia's S-400 systems proved vital during Operation Sindoor, spectacularly neutralizing Pakistan's China and Turkey-made missiles. Bilateral trade hit a record $68.7 billion in last financial year, with India exporting machinery, textiles, chemicals and more, while imports from Russia remain dominated by crude oil, fertilizers, metals and machinery. From missile defense to energy security and billions in trade, Modi's dost Vladimir Putin's India visit is more than ceremonial. It is strategic. All eyes in global strategic sphere, especially in Trump's America, is fixated on this trip. With Shivani Sharma and Sandeep Unithan, Bureau Report, India Today.
If there's one primary example of strategic autonomy, it is this relationship between India and Russia. Despite all the sanctions and pressures from the West, India continued to remain engaged with Russia, with the defense engagement, and also becoming one of the top buyers of oil, seaborne oil, from Russia. Now, there are reports that there could be a reduction in oil intake from Russia, but India continues to maintain that it will keep its interests first.
India's crude oil imports from Russia are expected to have risen slightly in October 2025 from the previous month. Preliminary ship tracking data from Kepler and OilX show India defying pressure from Washington to cut purchases continues to import oil from Russia. India's Russian oil imports rose to about 1.48 million barrels per day or BPD in October from 1.44 million BPD in September, Kepler data showed. Whereas OilX pegged October imports at the same level and said September imports were 1.43 million BPD. OilX data excluded oil from Kazakhstan that was also exported from Russia. But this is about to decrease. Trade and refining sources claim that India's Russian oil imports are set to hit their lowest in at least 3 years in December 2025. That would be a down from multi-months high in November as refiners turn to alternatives to avoid breaching Western sanctions. The Russian president and the Indian Prime Minister will work together to salvage the situation. Russia invaded Ukraine in February of 2024 and the world, or rather America and its allies in Europe, were united in cornering Russia. Other than the economic sanctions, that was very little the West could do to push Vladimir Putin to back down, because Putin had the key power to maneuver energy. Little by little, the West and European Union in particular tried to wean themselves off Russian energy, causing Russian ruble to lose its shine. Vladimir Putin turned to his old friends, China and India. Despite severe criticism, India bought more than twice as much crude oil from Russia in the 2 months since its invasion of Ukraine as it did in the whole of 2021. Indian Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar time and again defended India's decision, sometimes even went into offensive batting as well.
What looks almost like a campaign on this issue. Now, I was just reading a report today that in the month of March, Europe has bought, I think, 15% more oil and gas from Russia than it did the month before. Europe has to grow out of the mindset that Europe's problems are the world's problems, but the world's problems are not Europe's problems.
India bought crude oil worth $25.5 billion from Russia in 2022. It nearly doubled to $48.6 billion in 2023 and rose to $52.7 billion in 2024. Donald Trump came back to the Oval Office in January 2025, and from the very beginning, he started to use tariffs as punitive measures. India has been slapped by the USA with an additional 25% tariff for buying crude oil from Russia.
Atma Vishwas, or self-confidence. As the most populous nation, as a civilizational state, as a rapidly growing major economy, we are confident about who we are and what we will be. Bharat will always maintain its freedom of choice and will always be a voice of the Global South.
Russia faces a tough challenge under the circumstances, and India is in a tight spot. Bureau Report, India Today.
This This is the Dosti Druzhba moment. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Vladimir Putin have met 17 times in the last 11 years through multilateral and annual summits. This is the Modi-Putin moment yet again that we're seeing for over a decade now. President Putin is visiting India after 5 years, and it only shows promise of the relationship growing stronger.
It's a dosti built over a period of 11 years, cemented with cooperation and mutual understanding. What has been a traditional international friendship took a leap forward with the confidence of two strong leaders, Narendra Modi and Vladimir Putin. Moscow and New Delhi always stand by each other.
We share very good and positive relations with Prime Minister Modi. He's a very wise man, and India has been making great strides in its development under his leadership. So this fully meets the interests of both India and Russia to work on this agenda.
When the world cornered Russia over the Ukraine invasion and Moscow needed to survive economically, New Delhi, while condemning the war, bought oil from them as it was cheap and suited Indian interests. Despite worldwide criticism, India stood its ground.
When oil prices go up, I think it's natural for countries to go out into the market and look for what are good deals for their people. But I am pretty sure if we wait 2 or 3 months and actually look at who are the big buyers of Russian gas and oil, I suspect the list won't be very different from what it used to be, and I suspect we won't be in the top 10 on that list.
We do not think India should accelerate or increase imports of Russian energy and other commodities, even as obviously those decisions are made by individual countries, and also making clear that we stand ready to support India as in any efforts to diversify its imports and serve as a reliable supplier, even as they're only importing about 1 to 2% of their oil from India.
In the past 11 years, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Russian President Vladimir Putin have met each other 17 times. Narendra Modi's first visit as the Prime Minister of India to St. Petersburg way back in 2017 was an emotional one. He remembered his visit to the Russian city as the Gujarat Chief Minister in 2001.
साल 2001 में जब ऐसा समिट पहली बार रूस में हुआ था, तब मेरे मित्र पुतिन रूस के राष्ट्रपति थे और मैं अटल जी के साथ उस समय के हमारे प्रधानमंत्री गुजरात के मुख्यमंत्री के तौर पर भारत के डेलीगेशन में आया था। राष्ट्रपति पुतिन की और मेरी राजनीतिक सहयात्रा के दौरान दोनों देशों की दोस्ती और सहयोग का सफर तेजी से आगे बढ़ा है।
Министр культуры Российской Федерации Владимир Ростиславович Митинский.
St. Petersburg Declaration of 2017 became the benchmark of stability in a turbulent, independent and interconnected world. A year later, the President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, met Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, for the 19th edition of the Annual Bilateral Summit in New Delhi on October 4th and 5th, 2018.
The relationship between India and Russia needs no special introduction. It has very deep roots.
In 2019, when the two met again, the Indian Prime Minister had just ensured his second term. At Vladivostok, for the 5th Eastern Economic Forum, both leaders noted progressive development of the special and privileged strategic partnership between India and Russia.
भारत और रूस के बीच में संबंधों का सवाल है, वो हर क्षेत्र में फला फूला है। भारत का ऑयल एंड गैस के क्षेत्र में इन्वेस्टमेंट है, रशिया की कंपनियों का भी खास करके टेक्नोलॉजी ट्रांसफर, डिफेंस मैन्युफैक्चरिंग एनर्जी के क्षेत्र में अभी अभी इन्वेस्टमेंट हुआ है। तो हम दोनों देशों के बीच में ऐसी कोई रुकावटें नहीं है।
Russian President Vladimir Putin came calling again in December 2021. The two leaders gave impetus for sustained progress in the special and privileged strategic partnership between both countries despite the challenges posed by the COVID pandemic.
हमारी स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप के 2 दशक पूरे हो रहे हैं। इस विशेष वर्ष में आपके साथ फिर मिल पाना मेरे लिए हर्ष की बात है, क्योंकि हमारी स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप में पिछले 20 वर्षों में जो उल्लेखनीय प्रगति हुई है, उसके मुख्य सूत्रधार आप ही रहे हैं। विभिन्न सेक्टरों में आज हुए हमारे समझौतों से इसमें मदद मिलेगी। मेक इन इंडिया कार्यक्रम के तहत को डेवलपमेंट और को प्रोडक्शन से हमारा रक्षा सहयोग और मजबूत हो रहा है।
Within months of this meeting, Russia invaded Ukraine and the war still continues. But it did not impact the relations India and Russia have built over decades. Neither did it impact the bonhomie enjoyed by the two leaders. In September 2022, Prime Minister Narendra Modi met Russian President Vladimir Putin in Samarkand, Uzbekistan, on the sidelines of the 22nd meeting of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization to discuss important issues of bilateral cooperation as well as regional and global issues of interest like the global food security, energy security, and availability of fertilizers. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi kicked off his third term with a trip to Russia for the 22nd Indo-Russian Annual Summit in July 2024. New Delhi and Moscow signed 9 MOUs and agreements in several sectors, including trade, climate, and research.
मैंने तय किया है कि मैं तीसरे टर्म में 3 गुना ज्यादा मेहनत करूंगा और मैं देश के लिए और अच्छे काम करने का प्रयास करूंगा।
आपने अपना पूरा जीवन जनता को समर्पित किया है और जनता ये जानते हैं।
मेरा वन लाइफ वन विजन है मेरा देश।
Prime Minister Modi made 4 visits to Russia during his first term, but in his second term it was only once. Whereas the Russian president in past 11 years has come to India thrice. Twice in the first term of Prime Minister Modi and once in the second term. Vladimir Putin's 4th November visit to New Delhi will be his 4th visit to India in past 11 years, marking a deeper bond between the two countries in Modi 3.0. Bureau Report, India Today.
President Vladimir Putin is going to be in India on the 4th of December. It is going to be a strategic power play between New Delhi and Moscow, and we will be watching every move very closely, bringing you detailed analysis. But for now, it is a wrap on this edition. As India says namaste to Putin, it's Das Madanya from Moscow from me.